Welcome back, movers and groovers, to another one of Nathan Bell's awesome commentary videos where he discusses sport, culture, politics, everything that you can think of from his very unique and always interesting perspective. Give it a like, give it a share. Today, Nate wants to talk about veganism.
Yeah. Well, I think about veganism a lot. Both my parents are vegetarians. That's a moral decision they make because they don't want to harm living creatures to survive. I do think ultimately at the end of the day, I think that vegans and vegetarians do have the moral high ground, and I would like one day to make the decision to become vegan or vegetarian. I haven't yet, I still eat meat, but I do think I would prefer that no living creature die so that I can survive. And my view is, I think that while we have the capacity to survive without killing other living animals, I think we should make that moral, ethical decision because I believe in ending suffering in the world. And I do think the industries, the animal food industries, the animals are often living in very, very poor conditions and living lives of suffering in the farms before they are then slaughtered so that we can eat them. And I think that really human beings need to make a decision not to inflict suffering on other sentient creatures. And I worked for Steggles for a few months as a chicken catcher in the farms, and let me tell you, some of the treatment of the animals, the chickens in the farms, was terrible. I've got no problem saying that from my perspective, Steggles is not living up to expectations of animal welfare, because I was in the farms and the guys were throwing the chooks around and smashing them into the ground and just caving their skulls in and killing them. It was brutal. So I'll say that about Steggles. They need to be held account for how they're treating animals. Now, I do think, however, that veganism is and vegetarianism is a bit naive, because my view is, for me, it's pretty clear that human beings are predators, and I also acknowledge that predator behaviour is a part of nature. Animals eat each other, and there's no shortage of animals who naturally, as their way of being and instinctually, kill and eat other animals. It's a part of nature. My view is nature and the natural world is quite brutal, and it's a fight for survival. So, and I think I don't know what the research says, but from what I can see, human beings fall into that predator category. We've been eating meat for a long time, and we hunt, and I think that's natural. And I think to deny that killing other animals to eat them is natural is naive. It is the way that the natural world works. Animals hunt each other, and there are predators, and I think human beings are a predator species. I also want to point out that from my view, I worship nature and the natural world, and plants are also sentient living creatures as well. Plants have thought, in my view, and the research is starting to show this, that plants think as well. And plants may have a sense of self as well. So, it's like, what can we eat? Can we eat anything? Because plants aren't inanimate. Plants are alive as well. And I think plants do think, and we know now that plants communicate with one another. So it's like, we've got to eat something. So I think to some extent we have to accept that animals prey on one another, and animals prey on other sentient beings to survive. But ultimately, I would prefer to make the choice, and I think in the next few years I might make the choice to abandon meat, because I'd prefer nothing suffer so that I can survive. I'd prefer to live a life where my presence in the world doesn't cause suffering to other animals. But I have to say, I do love eating meat, and I think meat tastes great, and it makes me feel full and energized. I think in the future we're probably going to clone meat. You can grow meat in a lab dish now, and that's what I'd like to see for the future, because there are dietary benefits to eating meat, and you have to change your diet drastically to live a healthy life to drop meat. So I think in the future we're going to have factories that grow meat in a dish, and we're going to be mass producing meat that way, in a way that doesn't harm other living creatures. So if we can grow meat in factories, and that's fine, and I support that. I respect the vegans, and I respect their moral righteousness, and I think they make some good points about they're well-meaning people, and they don't want they want anyone to experience any suffering. They don't want any animals to experience any suffering, and I definitely respect that, because I think we should avoid bringing suffering into the world as much as possible. Definitely the moral high ground goes to the vegans who don't want to cause harm to others. I think veganism is probably the way of the future, and I think our society will go that way. In my book, 22nd Century Man, veganism is written into law, and eating meat or eating any living creature is outlawed. So that's what I've put forth in my book, 22nd Century Man, which you're going to get later this year. But certainly I acknowledge that I haven't given up meat yet. So I can't say that I have any moral high ground or righteousness, because I'm still eating living creatures to survive. So drop a comment in the comment section about what you think about veganism, and let me know what you think.